Here we are, Final Cut TV. Once again, we Final Cut Pro 10.7.1 just came out. Didn't well, I got to turn that off. Hold on a second. There. I always got to. It comes up on the browser. So 10.7.1 came out, which we've been talking about on Final Cut TV and Coffee for the last couple of weeks. I was hoping they'd get it out before Christmas, before they went on Christmas break. Ta-da! They did it. Now, not only did that, one of the main features of 10.7.1 that it's not in the notes is this. They gave us snow for the wintertime in 10.7.1. That's a special feature that everybody can enjoy, and we'll talk about how to get a hold of that when we come back. We're going to take a quick little tour break with the countdown timer. We have some business to do, and then we'll come back and I'll introduce you to all of these Final Cut Pros all over the screen here. All right, everybody, we'll be back in a few minutes. Okay, I think we're live. Now let me turn this countdown off. Hey, is it snowing? It is snowing. What the heck is going on? Well, this is one of the Christmas presents that the Final Cut Pro team have given us. They gave us 10.7.1. Now, Final Cut TV is on the air within a half hour of 10.7.1 coming out, just like we were on the air a half hour after 10.7 came out 3 weeks ago. Not 3 weeks. Yeah, it's been 3 weeks. Thursday.
Has it been
I can't remember.
It was like the
2 or 3 years
is when it came out.
So it is. 3 weeks. 3 weeks. Today's the 21st.
What bugs?
Yes, 3 weeks.
I haven't looked at it yet. What bugs did this one?
Well, there's only been a couple, but the one that I consistently saw was about the color board crashing, especially on Intel machines, and when you hit certain the color picker or whatever, and the color board, it would crash Final Cut Pro. So I figured, well, it says right there, improve stability on Intel-based Mac models when using the color wheels or color curves. As a matter of fact, let's pull this up over here so if people know what we're talking about, and we will do this. Look at this. So here it is, the update. I have not updated yet, 10.7.1, improves stability on Intel-based Mac models when using color wheels or color curves on H.264 video clips, fixes an issue with some default keyboard shortcuts incorrectly on non-English keyboards. That's two little things that they fixed, but those are important things, aren't they? I mean, and the thing is, they did it before Christmas, before they went on break. So here's a couple. We'll do our comments here. Is that Bob Mendelson? Is that who that is?
Melanson. Hi, Bob. Sorry, we're butchering your last name.
Well, we already got 7 thumbs up already. We just started. That's fantastic. And a heart. I don't know where the hearts come from. I get these hearts, and I'm not sure where they come from, but that's great. Fantastic. So, we're going to talk a little bit about the Creative Summit. We're going to talk whatever we want to about Final Cut Pro 10.7. Gabe had a comment. Well, let me introduce everybody first. How about that? So this is Santa Claus. Where is Santa Claus? Right here.
Right behind you. There.
And this Santa Claus, I actually built. My father made that by hand when I was in single digits. And I've kept it all these years. We used to put it out front of our yard in Silver Spring. He had the nativity out there and reindeer and Santa Claus. And this is one of the ones where he built in his wood workshop. So we have Santa Claus, and then we have over here. Look at why is that backwards? Over here, Cirina Catania.
Hi.
Cirina Catania down in the lower left corner. This is going to change though. I changed the layout. Lower left corner is Bradley Olsen, the producer of Off the Tracks, that great film about Final Cut Pro. And right below me is my friend Gabriel Spaulding, who I did a short interview with at the Creative Summit. I haven't put the whole thing up yet, but I do have it. So we sat down in a coffee shop. Pete's, it was Pete's, right? Yeah, it was Pete's. And we did a sit-down interview. So I have this show on Saturday mornings at 10 o'clock, Final Cut TV and Coffee. For the last 2 episodes, we've been talking about 10.7.1 and the possibility of it coming out before Christmas. Thank you, Final Cut Pro team. Thank you, Final Cut Pro team, for putting out this update. Now, here's the thing. When I mentioned this on our Facebook page, somebody said, do you think that's enough time for them to fix all the bugs and have it out before Christmas? And I said, no. I'm not talking about fixing all the bugs. They never do that. Who fixes all the bugs? It's just whatever few they can get out before Christmas, give it to us, and they did it. So that's fantastic. So here we have a comment, hi all, from Don Stafford. And Eric Emmerich says, hearts come from YouTube text box. Okay, there you go. Hello and Merry Christmas from Philadelphia, our good friend Spencer Lewis, and of course our good friend Yari Innanen. Good evening, y'all, from Helsinki, Finland. Yari, thank you for tuning in. I met Yari 2019 at NAB. Is that when he was? When did they have the Faster Together party? Do you guys remember? Was that 2019?
There was one in 2019. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't remember if it's 2018 or 2019.
I think it was 2019 that I met Yari. He came to NAB then. Apple has changed some of their keyboard shortcuts with 10.7. VoiceOver is now controlled, blah, blah, blah. You mean the default ones? I have a customized one. Hello from Germany. Absolutely. So let's get started on this 10.7.1. It's only a couple small bug features that they put out, but they did it before Christmas, so people that have those issues don't have to worry about dealing with them. This has been a record for Final Cut Pro updates. 7 updates in the last 6 months. 7 updates in 6 months. Now, a lot of that was bug fixing. They put out 2 bug fixes within 2 weeks. This third bug fix they put out within 3 weeks. But it's 7 updates in 6 months, including some features, of course. What do you think about that?
They've been busy. I found something I need them to fix.
It's unusual, though.
Yeah.
7. When have they ever had 7 updates in 6 months before? Never. Never. So does that mean that there's, well, does it mean it? Of course it means there is something going on that's more energized with updates than it has been in the past. And that includes some features. Of course, 10.7 had some features, and there's been some other features along the way. But just the fact that they've been fixing bugs, with sometimes within 2 weeks, and this time within 3 weeks, it's fantastic. So
yeah, it looks like the problem with the non-English keyboard shortcuts is really important. They had to do that. So I wonder how many people, don't you wonder sometimes how many people are in that back room?
You mean the Final Cut Pro team?
Yeah, how many people are on that team?
Let's call up Philip. He'll know.
I heard how many were working on the iPhone, but I can't repeat it. It was unbelievable.
700.
Unbelievable.
700. No, that was public. Charlie Rose went into the secret lair of Apple years ago, and they told him that there's 700 people working just on the iPhone.
Yeah,
700.
That iPhone camera.
Yeah, iPhone camera. I'm sorry. It was the iPhone camera. You're right, Brad. Not the iPhone. It was the iPhone camera. So
I think there's a lot more than 700 people working on the phone.
Yeah, that's very true. No, you're absolutely correct. I had that incorrect. I meant the camera. 700 people working just on the camera. So we had this comment. The typical comment. We get comments like this all the time. Very small updates. That's not a record to shout about. It is a record to shout about because it is. They've never put out this many updates in 6 months. I said it includes some features. Go ahead.
He has a point, though. I mean,
yes, right.
Seven updates would look good, but if half of them are bug fixes, it doesn't look quite as good. You know.
But I guess the point.
They have them anyway.
No, I'm not. Absolutely, I'm not dismissing that. But the point is that we've still had 7 updates in 6 months. They've never done that before. There's been no time period in the history of Final Cut Pro that there's been 7 updates in 6 months. I'm not saying that we don't want more features. Of course we do. I mean, I waited 12 years for the scrolling timeline. Speaking of the scrolling timeline, Gabriel, you had a comment about the scrolling timeline before we went on the air. What was your comment?
It was not a feature that I requested, but having used it now every day since it was released, I could never go back to not having the scrolling timeline. It's so much better.
I agree. I totally agree. I did find one problem with it, though, and I hope that is if I'm doing really fast dialogue editing, which I do a lot of, in my left hand, I use the space bar to start and stop the clip. In my right hand, I'm using the range tool, right, and clicking on that. The scrolling timeline cannot keep up with the speed that I'm working using the space bar. So there's a little bit of lag there, which gets annoying. So I can't two-handed dialogue editing sometimes. I have to make myself slow down, which for me is hard. But I love it. Gabriel, you're absolutely right. I've been wanting it. And Richard, you've been asking for it for over 15 years.
What if you don't stop playback? Because I noticed if the timeline is scrolling and you mouse over anything to do anything, it'll freeze the timeline so that you can do the work you need to get done. And then as soon as you move your mouse, it'll continue scrolling. So it's possible to do changes without ever stopping playback now.
I'm using the range tool and I'm looking at the waveforms and it's really precise. And so it's better for me to that's just personally the way I work. You're probably right. I'll try it that way. But
For every type of change, but for like a global, dropping a volume or something.
Right. Yeah. But I'm when I'm doing editing, using the range tool and modifying whatever is going, like taking out people's ums if I have to do that manually rather than using lightning bolt or something like that. I'm moving really fast timeline and I like to use the space bar to start and stop while I do everything else with my right hand. I'm self-taught on all of this, so I hope I'm not giving people bad advice.
No, I do something similar. I do something similar. I have my mouse on my right hand, and then I have J, K, and L, and in and out, and zoom in and out with my left hand. So, and then the space bar, of course, for stop and start playback. So
I
they
noticed there's some lag there, so that's a little annoying right now. But I'm sure that can be fixed.
As far as
and I'm on a
dialogue
fast
editing,
computer. It's not the computer. Pardon me.
What machine?
On
Is it Intel
the
or
Mac
Apple
Pro.
Silicon?
On the Mac Pro.
Yeah, it's old tech.
I know. Oh, God.
old expensive tech. Old expensive tech.
something I noticed
Very
with
pricey tech.
Yes.
something I noticed with dialogue editing, though, I was removing breaths from a voiceover recording this morning. Voice isolation, it'll completely cancel out the waveform, so you can't even see the breaths. So it'd be nice if there is something that you hear that it still showed the waveforms. It's a little too aggressive.
Yeah.
Which
Got
makes
to
it
have
really
those
tricky.
waveforms, even if I'm
What
doing
about the ghost
multi-track.
waveforms?
Yeah, turn on the ghost waveform. You should be able to
Yeah.
see it. I have them on
I'll have to give it
anyway.
a shot.
Yeah, but that's a good point. These are all good points.
Those ghost ones don't change based off volume; stay the same. So I would try that.
Well, that makes
if you
complete
can see
sense.
it.
That makes complete sense. So it's the idea, Cirina. There you go.
I'm sorry. I'm trying
That's
to
fine.
get my
That's fine.
trying to get my camera situated right. I apologize. I
That's
was seeing
good.
the-
No, that's good. That's good. You're
the
fine.
edge of the proscenium.
You're fine. You're fine. So I am glad that they brought out 10.7.1 today. The Final Cut Pro team got this out before Christmas. Did they have to get it out before Christmas? No, they didn't have to. I mean, it's only a couple bug fixes. I understand that, but it's still 7
I'm pretty
updates
sure
in 6 months.
Came in. Tim Cook said, "You cannot go on vacation until you get this bug fix update." It was very important to him.
Did anybody see Tim Cook at the Apple campus? I was looking for him.
No, they did not. I also did not try to stalk Tim Cook while I was at the Apple campus. I stayed with the tour group.
Yeah, it's good.
Bradley, I thought you went into his office. Was it
We weren't
Bradley
gonna
that was
talk
going to
about
go
that,
into his
Cirina.
office?
I can't confirm or deny any of these accusations or alleged. Yeah.
So Charles says, how about the long overdue roles-based mixer, something that would speed up a lot of workflows on a daily basis? Do we still think that's likely to come to fruition, and do enough users want it? Absolutely. It's one of the top requests now that the scrolling timeline's been knocked out of the top slot. And this is, since I'm not on the beta team and have no inside, well, let's just say I have no inside direct connection, there is a roles-based mixer. It exists in Final Cut Pro the same way that I've been saying for years that the scrolling timeline was there. It was there from the very beginning, but they just had to get it worked out so they can turn it on, make sure optimization. There is a roles-based mixer inside of Final Cut. Okay. So yes,
It's not the
and it
shipping
is.
version.
No, not the shipping version. I'm talking about the beta versions or one of the other versions. The roles-based mixer is there. They will indeed at some point turn that on and have it come out. And it is a top request. No, Charles, we're not saying. I'm not saying. I don't think any of us is saying that we think that the 7 updates that they've done in 6 months. They're not feature updates. They're just quick, some of the times, quick bug fix updates. I mean, turning a corporation like Apple, turning around a bug fix in 2 weeks is incredible to me. They've done it twice, 2 weeks, and this is the third time is 3 weeks. That's very, very quickly turning those things around. Do we want more features? Of course we do. All of us want features. I'm not sure what's your main feature you want to see right now? Do you have any?
Nothing. I don't want to see any new features in Final Cut.
You're completely satisfied.
Say something about, completely satisfied is perfect. Notes. I was going to say though that a couple things. One, the scrolling timeline. I guess Chris Hawking found that actually was something that the code was in there and just had to be turned on. And then a comment on that, and also the likelihood of maybe getting some sort of effects roles-based mixer or something in the future. There's something Summit, which was that in talking to just general conversations, just something I kind of walked away with an understanding of, which was that the Final Cut team doesn't release features until they feel like they're ready and their performance benchmarks and stability. I think they're pickier than certain other companies. So there's a lot of things I'm sure that we have not seen that they've been testing for 5 or 6 years, and they're just not out yet. And like you said, the scrolling timeline is something that with older hardware didn't perform up to the standard that they wanted it to. So it just wasn't enabled until it was ready. And I think that my hope is that the same thing can be said for what I hope is more than just an audio roles-based mixer. I hope it works with video roles so that you can apply effects to both video and audio roles. And that, I think, would be a huge game changer. And I've said that on the show before. I think it'd be a huge game changer to be able to group your video roles together and apply effects and color correction to
absolutely
roles.
Absolutely.
Not just on the audio side.
Brad, that's a great idea. When you brought that up before at one of these live streams, that was a great idea. I think that's really good. We got somebody from watching from Singapore. So Jeff Arbaio says 7.1 fix all the glitches that were happening. No. They never, Jeff. They never fix all the bugs that are happening. Never. They always save some. They got it. Job security. If they fixed all the bugs, they would be out of a job. What? Come on. No. I didn't expect them to fix all the bugs.
Where they fix this part of the road, but they don't fix these potholes because they need a job in the 6 months. So.
Exactly. No, it's just they fixed a couple before Christmas. I guess that's my point. They could have just as easily went to Christmas vacation and said, we'll get to it in January. So, but they didn't. They gave us 10.7.1 before Christmas, which is what I've been talking about on Final Cut TV and Coffee on Saturdays since 10.7 came out. As soon as I started seeing the bug reports, and I haven't experienced any of those bugs. I haven't touched the color board, though. People scared me away from the color board, so I haven't touched that since 10.7 came out. I said, not going to touch that. But it's mostly on Intel. I think it was on Intel machines. I'm not sure they fixed something with Intel machines. But anyway, yeah.
Did you expect spatial video support from the iPhone in an update for Final Cut before the end of the year?
I thought they might slip it in because it's on the phone. I mean, It's on the phone. We can record it, but we can't monitor it unless you have. What are you monitoring on? It's But I can record it on my iPhone 15 Pro Max.
Yeah. So The rumors that I've been reading about is that Vision Pro should be available to order by the end of January. That's who knows if that's an actual likely benchmark.
Yeah, they've updated it.
But I would think that Final Cut would have to support spatial video for the Pro ships. So
Yeah,
that's
it just makes sense. It just makes sense. I mean, it's on the phone in 2023, but okay, I can record it, but what do I do with it? I can't monitor it. I'm not, can't monitor it anyway, not in the, three-dimensional out there with Tom Cruise in Minority Report type way. So I thought they might put it in since it's on the phone, but that's okay. It'll be out with the goggles, as I call them. I put up a picture. I put up a picture of my iPhone screen with the new little teeny goggles at the bottom. When I updated, and I put an arrow and I said, "Look what I got!" And then Gregory Clark, Philip's husband, said, "Beer goggles? Is that what they are?" I said, "Yeah, those are beer goggles." Somebody else made some other jokes about them or whatever. So this is an interesting question from Eric. Says, can we assume the next feature update will be February, March, most likely to support Vision Pro? I would presume that's going to, like Brad was just saying, I think they've upped the Vision Pro release to February, late January, February. They moved it up a little bit. So I would expect sometime around that time period we would see the ability to edit in Final Cut Pro. Now, is anybody going to be shooting that and editing? Are you excited about that feature coming to Final Cut?
I am.
Are you going to get the goggles? Yeah.
I was just trying to remember the name of the first goggles I got. Remember those cardboard ones that you built yourself that you could use for 3D? What were those called? Do you guys remember that? It's like maybe 5 years ago. Anyway.
I remember, yeah, but that was like the red eye and the green eye, or red eye and the blue eye lenses. Yeah, but that wasn't.
Yeah. It's much more
that was just
now. But I am starting to follow VR and that kind of a solution a lot more than I have in the past. And I don't know enough about it to really speak eloquently during this broadcast. But I'm going to be interviewing Vinci, who just won from a major organization, the upcoming VR star of 2023, and she's pretty amazing. So we're going to be talking about multimedia with her, and I've got questions for her about how she does it, why she does it, and where she's going with it. So I'll learn a lot. But I do think it's kind of fun. It's fun. I can't really use it for any of my clients right now. I don't have those kind of clients. What I'm doing is more, it's more typical. Like the films I'm working on are traditional films. So
right.
I think that the 3D VR stuff comes and goes and comes and goes and comes and goes, and it's fun. It's like a new game, and then you get tired of it and you drop it and you pick up another game.
I'm sure it's amazing. I'm sure it's amazing if you put those on and get them fitted and all. It's just an amazing experience. But I'm not going to spend $3,500 for that. That's not going to happen for me. $3,500 is going towards a new MacBook Pro. That's what I'd be spending on, right, Brad?
You guys are nudging me into getting a new version of the Mac Pro. Oh my gosh, how much money do we all spend on equipment? Come on. Well, I was joking around the last time we were on together about maybe the new equipment's a tax deduction.
Well, it's all tax deduction if it's part of your business, right?
Gotta order it soon before the end of the year, Cirina.
Yeah. Not gonna do it. I need a new laptop.
Yeah, same with. Well, I don't need it.
M3 Pro or something. Get a 14-inch MacBook Pro with lots of storage.
Yeah.
Well,
and
that's the thing.
Monitors.
4 terabytes minimum, and the 8 terabyte is more reasonable when you look at the OWC. They just put it the 8 terabyte. whatever that single
Oh yeah, those are cool.
NVMe. It's like 1,200 megabits per second. I mean, it's like 3,000 megabits per second for 1,200 hours. So at that point, I'm thinking maybe I just should get the 8 terabyte SSD next time with the MacBook Pro, because having that extra 4 terabytes for whatever the price point is not so unreasonable. I have the 4 terabyte.
Difference now. Makes a difference. So the stuff we're working on is huge, and I keep having to move stuff off of my computer, even though most of my media is in a third solution, right? It's in another solution always. Well, not always, but most of the time, OWC. I've got the Flex 8 here and the Jupiter down the hall, and I don't know how many Thunder Bays and Envoys, and these little guys are great. But my computer, the Mac Pro, gets filled up all the time, and you have to move.
Absolutely, absolutely.
6K, 12K.
12K? Who the heck you? What are you doing with 12K?
Camera. I'm playing with 12K just to test the new Blackmagic camera, just for fun.
I shoot 6K with my Lumix S5 Mark II X open gate, and which is I think 2:3 aspect ratio, which is really good. And then everything else is 4K on my iPhone. Gabe, do you do shooting yourself, Gabe? I know you do editing, but do you do shooting too?
I did for most of the last 15 years, but I've kind of stopped for the most part. Although I do shoot.
There's a camera.
That camera I used last week on a piece. 6K ProRes were off myself, and there's like a handful of a few minute clips that the file size was bigger than the entire rest of the project. So it's a lot.
Yeah. Cirina, with the 12K camera, when you downres in it, it groups the pixels together in that Blackmagic 12K. So you're still using all the photo sites for lower resolutions, if that makes sense. Yeah. It's not like row skipping, pixel skipping. I'd be interested if you did some tests between the quality of 4K versus 8K versus 12K on there.
What I always think about with all of this? We are judging the quality of our footage by what we see on our 5K or whatever monitors, right? The true test comes in when you're sitting in a theater and you're looking at it on a screen that takes up an entire 35-foot wall or foot wall. That's where you see how things match up or don't match up. I know on this current film I'm working on, I have every iteration possible of footage, from any DV, even some VHS, every camera, every Blackmagic iteration of camera since then, and Hasselblad for stills. It's all over the place, and it'll be really interesting to see how it all kind of fits. And Gabriel, you're probably going through that with the kind of projects you're working now too, with stock footage and looking back on things and bringing footage in from, the storage room. It's an interesting time, and the amount of media that we all have is just growing exponentially. And I think about what happens when I pass on and everything just sitting in tapes or digital format. Is anybody even going to find it all? Or
No. Just like you have family photo albums now.
Yeah.
My girlfriend Jane's going through that with her family. They throw 80% of them, 90% of them away. So yeah, it's the same thing with digital files. Who in the heck's going to go through all your hours and hours and hours of digital files? Your kids aren't.
No,
like say, Dad,
I know.
Put it on
nothing against
there.
my
I'd like them to
robots
find. There's some historic stuff. There's actually at my age, there's historic stuff in there. But who's going to find it?
Put it on Google Drive, and the machine learning robots will go through it, and it'll be very useful for them to generate new fake images. I mean, that's another thing about resolution is as machine learning gets better at upscaling your resolution, really shooting beyond 4K will become more and more pointless because, the machine learning could scale that up and up and up. It does a decent job taking SD and HD sources already and up-resing them. I mean, it's not perfect, but it'll get better.
Well, I use Topaz AI for that. I love that. It denoises and upscales at the same time. So
I've had no success with that. I've tried
Yeah.
multiple times.
Topaz? Oh, I love Topaz.
Photo and video.
no, I don't use the photo.
One
No.
is anywhere
It's-
near the quality
I
I
use
would want.
both. The Topaz for photos has really helped me with some of these old pictures.
Yeah.
To fix, like every once in a while you'll shoot something that's not exactly in focus or it's a little bit noisy, and
Right.
it's really good for that for me. What are you
Well,
guys
I-
using in terms of AI for animation, like creating animated scenes? Are you doing any
No
of that,
AI.
Gabriel, with your historical stuff?
I'm still using my human brain for that.
Your
And I
human
will
brain
probably
versus
continue
Dave's
to.
point, a lot of these features that you see demoed in software works in specific cases and then can break in many other cases. And I found that with anything from denoising to up-resing to whatever, it just seems like, or like matching color, it like works great in a specific things, or in specific instances it works great, and then in other instances it completely falls apart. Optical flow,
Right.
the same thing. Sometimes for if there's little movement or it's a specific thing, it works great. Try running optical flow with your shot of a waterfall, probably going to fall apart really quick.
right. No, that's true. That's absolutely true. So Jeff says Cirina convinced me with Juniper. Yeah.
Yeah, we've
Jupiter.
got to get Jeff set up for remote editing, remote access into his ecosystem there at his home office or his office. I don't know which it is, but yeah, that's an interesting. Do any of you guys have good solutions for that?
For which?
We use for remote access to your ecosystem. When, for example, when I was at, can't remember the name of the program. One of my IT guys put a program on my home computer on the Mac Pro, actually, and I had to leave it on the whole time I was gone, but it came in handy because I was editing something and I had to access the files at the network at home, and I can't remember the name of the program. I'll have to look it
Is
up.
it Jump Desktop?
Pardon me?
Is it Jump Desktop?
Jump Desktop that's probably the best one.
Is that a good one? No, it's not.
that.
It's a different one. It's one that's not really very well known, but a lot of IT guys use it. Now, I know when somebody comes in remote and they need to edit on my machine, or I've got an admin person that needs to access one of the machines in the office, we're using TeamViewer to that, but I have to be here to give them the password and log them in. And then they can, use the machines here remote, but it's becoming more and more necessary, I think, for all of us now that we're back in the field again. NAB is coming up in April. What's going to happen when I haven't some of my projects and I need to work late at night from the hotel room? So we're looking into Topaz really comment here about the quad mini DV recordings. Yeah.
No, I used it. I used it for just what he was saying, because he was on the show a couple weeks ago, and I said I used it for digitizing mini DV tapes, and instead of having him at 640, I doubled the resolution, and it does a great job. But it's like anything else. There's dozens and dozens of settings. There's no one thing you click and it does all. There's all kinds of settings you can do. You can do a little bit of up, but the main thing is as you're denoising, you can upscale. That's the main thing that I like about it. So like standard def, I just double the resolution if it's standard def. If it's 4K, I don't do anything with the resolution. I'll leave it at 4K. But
I'm curious about the ethical take on, say, uprising documentary footage or using AI for that, because it's no longer actually the documented footage at that point. It's all fake pixels that have been drawn in by a machine. So it's no longer an actual document of the event. So I think
Gabriel, that's an
interesting
interesting
conundrum.
point. How do we draw the line between, for example, someone sent me, because they know that I'm getting more and more into landscape photography. So, large pan and scan of the landscape. And the winners of this year's photo contest for the best landscape photographer of the year, they're all photoshopped. or they're screen grabs from drones. And I'm thinking,
It seems like the wrong competition for that. I mean, you can make amazing
Yes.
Photoshop artwork, and it's super impressive, but it's not photography.
Well, Gabe, you're absolutely correct. Here's the thing: because I've done a documentary, I did a documentary, and I did upscale some of the standard def footage. As long as you tell them it's been upscaled, I don't see a problem with it.
Mm-hmm.
In other words,
do you have to tell the audience in the video that this footage is not actually what was captured? It was recreated later on by a machine?
Well,
I think intent.
I think you tell
goes
them in
a
the
long way
credits,
there, though.
maybe.
You can. I mean, look. I think it's intent because we're editing, and you're going to cut down what somebody's saying. But if the intent of what they still accurate, and I mean, what was really happening? I mean, the way your human eye would have perceived that event is not the same way a video camera would have captured it. Lower res recording of the video camera is not necessarily more accurate than what was actually happening. What AI does, if it's adding or distorting in a way that's not honest and it's not the intent,
right? Right.
If the presentation is not accurate, then I think that's when you're starting to cross into the ethical line. But I think if like Peter Jackson did, We Shall Not Grow Old, and they did a ton of upscaling, and they changed, like they took low frame rate, like undercranked footage, and they smoothed it out to 24 frames a second. There was manipulation on that, but in some ways it made you feel like it was more accurate to what it would have been like in the trenches of World War I than what the black and white footage that was damaged, even though that was the physical film that shot it. This is a good question, though. I think every documentary filmmaker has to kind of answer that question for themselves.
No, absolutely, Gabe.
Where they're crossing those lines.
If their intention is
right now.
If their intention is to mislead people, that's a different story. But I think if they upscale it on it and they do it on a 1-to-2 basis or whatever they do, and they don't change anything, and as long as they tell people, hey, this is upscaled from the original, as long as they don't try to fool people or change the narrative or something like that, that's a different story. But AI does that all over the place now, doesn't it? Every time I see something online, I go, I can't believe anything. Well, first off, the AI looks really fake a lot of the time, so you can identify it pretty quickly. But then if it's something that is really hard to believe, don't believe it. That's my philosophy. If it seems like it's just, wow, is that real? No, it's not. It's probably AI generated.
I'll tell you, next time you have Philip Hodgetts on, let's ask him these questions, because he really is in the thick of all of this AI developing projects that use AI as solutions within Final Cut. That's all I'll say at the moment. But he really has a lot of these answers. And Gabriel, I know what you're saying. I'm going through it right as I'm trying to recreate some of the scenes from World War II, Omaha Beach, and North Korea during Chosen, and Vietnam. And I don't have all of that footage. And for example, the Frank Cappa photographs, a lot of those were destroyed and lost. There aren't that many still photos of the landing on Omaha Beach, and I'm sick of seeing the same ones. So I'm thinking about using AI to create some new photos using the voice of my father talking about it, and somehow coming up with either some animation or some images that can address that scene that I don't have footage for, right? So in those instances, I love AI, but you're right, Richard. When I go online and I'm looking at the news and I hear that same voice all the time, like there's this guy called Jack that we even used. Remember Jack, the voice of Jack? You hear Jack everywhere.
Right.
And I've gotten to the point where I know when I hear that artificial voice that this is contrived, and now I don't really trust it, especially in news stories. Why don't you guys just voice over
in a
your
few
own
years we won't be able to tell, and that's
I know,
what gets
but
really scary.
it's also like when we talked about this once on the air. I have a letter from Eisenhower to my father that I would like the voice of Eisenhower to read the letter rather than, a narrator. And is that ethical? Well, he wrote the letter. He signed the letter. Can I use AI to recreate his voice and read the letter? And that's the kind of thing that we have the capability of doing now that we didn't before. And it's kind of exciting on the one hand, but absolutely there are ethical problems. He didn't
I think just do the credit that this voice was AI generated.
Right.
For all the people who stay by and watch the credits.
Yeah. Well, but it's there, or you can do it while it's being read, voice generated by AI. Nobody thinks that's really B. Eisenhower reading his own letter.
And don't get me wrong, like everything we do, it's all tricks. Like none of it's real. Even documentaries are manipulated. I mean, it's all. I'm not trying to be a Luddite about it. It's just categorically different, these new tools, than anything we've been able to do ourselves before. And I think continually asking the question is going to be more and more important with each passing day.
Yeah.
There's a part of me.
Really,
Go ahead, Brad.
I was going to say, I'm one that gets turned off very quickly by any YouTube video that uses an AI voice. At the same time, I think about accessibility, and there are people who physically cannot speak. And I think, well, isn't that empowering if they could have a voice that they felt like represented them and could use that to narrate or express themselves in video? So on the one hand, I'm very anti, I don't like that artificialness. On the other hand, I think this could be a great opportunity for accessibility. So where does that line, where do you draw that line?
Yeah. It's like anything else. It's a tool, but the main thing is just if you use it in an honest way and you're actually improving the actual footage, just let people know, or just put a little, somebody said Netflix shuts the credits off. Okay, well then put it, while it's being broadcast, put a little lower third in there with the information. That's just being broadcast.
No,
you don't have to just do it in the credits.
Has been fighting that for years. We have just been fighting that for years. It's so unfair to the crew. I'm sorry, I'm on my soapbox here, but the crews that work so hard on these projects and these movies, and then the streamer shuts off the credits. It's just not right.
That or the credits that are so fast they're on for like 1 second.
You can't read them.
They have like 500 names on the screen for 1 second, but there's your credit. Yeah, it's there, but nobody's reading it. So no, I was
watching a movie on Hulu, and I was looking for a friend's name in the credits, and the credits cut off short. And I thought that it was Hulu, so I turned off the setting to like kick out of the credits and autoplay the next thing. And I determined after a lot of trial and error that just somehow the video upload of whatever was compressed and sent to Hulu cut off short mid credits.
Wow!
And nobody received that because they thought, oh well, nobody watches credits anyway, so.
Oh no, I'm one of those people that'll sit in the theater. I'm the last person out because I'm watching the credit roll till the very, very end. I just love seeing who worked on these films.
And sometimes they put those Easter eggs in the credits.
It's gotten harder with it's gotten harder with the visual effects credits.
Right.
To sit through like 15 minutes of credits, but yeah. I usually sit through the credits unless I really, really have to get going for some reason.
One of the things that people have been saying since the Creative Summit is that they've been talking about, the Final Cut Pro team, they don't think that they put out enough updates, feature updates specifically. But those of us that were at the Creative Summit and we got to interact with the Final Cut Pro team and stuff, there was an energy at this Creative Summit that was absolutely through the roof. And yes, they were very honest with us at the Q&A. One of the things that they said, and even though I'm not going to say that I like their pace of updates, because I don't think anybody is satisfied with the feature update pace, they said they're going to update Final Cut Pro as they see fit. They said they're going to update it according to their schedule, not according to anybody else's schedule. right? Something along those lines. And I appreciate that kind of honesty. I do. You're not making false promises. We'll look at this and we'll look at that and we'll look at this. No, they said we're going to update it according to our schedule, what our schedule is. And they've held true to that. I mean, 12 years for the scrolling timeline, 11 years for dupe detection, 5 years for remove attributes. This is their timeline for updates. The point is that they deserve a lot of respect for what they're doing. Whatever the constraints that they get placed on them by Apple, I don't know anything about that specifically, but it seems like sometimes they get clamped down on. They are the best, the friendly people, and they have an extreme passion for Final Cut Pro, the way we all do, the way we all do here. Okay, but the scrolling timeline for me, of course, I was completely shocked. Brad, I talked to you at the lunch table before we saw 10.7. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And you said that Chris Hawkins,
they're going to do scrolling timeline.
You said Chris Hawkins said they're going to do scrolling timeline, and I said I don't think so. But it's not that I wasn't expecting it at some point. I just wasn't necessarily expecting it at 10.7. I was shocked.
I was too.
Now, one thing.
Out, oh my God. One
thing though, when they showed us 10.7, they had an icon for the scrolling timeline. Where did that icon go? It was a cool little icon for a scrolling timeline that I recognized immediately. I said, oh, that's going to be on top of the timeline. You can turn it on and off, but the click, 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 but it didn't show up anywhere. The icon's missing in action. So I'd like to see them bring that icon back somewhere. Just, I think a little button, on the timeline, since it's the timeline, since you can make it scroll or not scroll, a little button up there to turn scrolling timeline on and off for people that don't want it or want it sometimes.
I think the team is nervous about performance still, I think, because otherwise it would be on by default and it's off by default, and it wouldn't be a preference, it would be a button. So I think they're nervous that certain machines, the timeline won't scroll as smoothly as they would like. So it's kind of buried in the preferences. Well,
it's not buried.
No Final Cut preferences buried. They're minimal, but it's not obvious if you're just opening Final Cut. It's not like a button like the skimmer.
But it's the same. It's the same. It's almost exactly the same as Motion. Motion's had a scrolling timeline forever. It's the same. It's in a preference. You just turn it on, turn it off. It's off by default. You turn it on. You want it on. I think I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying, Gabe. I don't think they're afraid. I think they're just leaving it the default way most people are used to it, which is not the scrolling timeline. Yeah.
But I kind of lump that in with transcode media for for multicam clips and background render. Those things are on by default because those are, those would affect your performance. Whereas I think in most cases with modern day Macs, those things should always be unselected. They should be off. And all these things are based on performance, or at least perceived performance. So I almost feel like the scrolling timeline should be on by default and the other two should be off by default.
Mm-hmm. I'm not going to disagree with you. No, somebody in one of our Facebook groups that I have said, well, Mr. Scrolling Timeline, now that you got the scrolling timeline, what are we going to call you? And I said, well, call me Mr. Text-Based Editing or Mr. Roles-Based Mixer. That would be fine. So those.
You said that there were, 700 people working on the iPhone camera?
That's according to Apple. That was public.
At one point.
How many hundreds of people will it take for me to be able to move a marker more than one frame at a time? That's my big question.
Command post. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think Charles has an interesting comment here. I think the issue is that 99% of the users are left in the dark. 9%. The might be good at the event, but for the rest of the paying users, it continues to be radio silence. Apple politics, Charles. I don't know what to tell you. Other than go to the events, then it's our job, I guess, to then pass along that, yes, there's a dedicated team. They really, really care. They're working really, really hard. They had to get this iPad app out, which they spent some time on. And now that it's out, I think that's why we're seeing a little bit more love to the desktop. Hopefully 2024 will be good in the way that Apple can communicate to us unfortunately feels like there's a wall, and it's just here's a new update and here's the list, and that's basically what you're going to get. If you want more, I mean, I want more. I've wanted more ever since Final Cut 10 came out.
All of us
But
do.
I've
us do, I think.
I've just realized that, like, I think the marketing people and engineers, they themselves would want more, but there's a bigger company that sells phones, and this is just a tiny sliver of the pie that you'd have to zoom in. If it was a vector pie graphic, I think you'd have to zoom in like 3,000% to see the sliver that is the profit of Final Cut Pro in the grand scheme of Apple. So
the
I
idea
found,
sucks.
Go ahead.
Over the years, I found that, when I've gotten frustrated with the pace of updates, and I start, looking around at other things, and it usually takes about 4 hours of editing in any other NLE for me to suddenly realize, oh yeah, this is why I use Final Cut. Like, it doesn't have text-based editing yet, or this or that, a real magic mask, but like, those are features I wouldn't use all that often, whereas I'm actually spending most of my time in the timeline with no tracks. So I think for anybody who's really impatient with Final Cut, just cut with like Premiere or Resolve for a couple days, and I think you'll understand.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's go back to Charles's comment. I think the issue is 99% of the users left in the dark. You were not left in the dark at all. You were not left in the dark at all. We came out and told you all about everything immediately. The social media was blasted with nobody's legally in the dark. If you bought tickets for a Rolling Stones concert and you attended the concert, it's going to be different for the people that attend the concert than the people that are just hear about the concert. It's the same kind of thing. We took time off work. We paid money for hotels. We paid money for transportation. We paid for the tickets. And so we get some special things. That's one of the special things that we get is attendance of the Final Cut Pro team. Nobody's kept in the dark. You knew exactly what was going on as soon as we were allowed to talk about it. Everybody talked about it on social media. The Final Cut Pro, they put out their update as well. And it's not radio silence. You know exactly how much we know immediately. We were all exuberant about it. So
they did.
You're not kept in the dark.
They did put out the press release like a minute after we learned. So
yes,
the public was only like a minute behind us, really.
Right.
Well, and also, I mean, I can't imagine any tech company developing multi-million-dollar additions and fixes to their software. They're not going to talk about that ahead of time for security reasons. I mean, there's a reason why you don't talk about these things until the release, and then you release it, and then you get your beta testers, or you get some feedback from your audience, and that's when you fix it. But I mean, just looking, even with my partners Philip and Greg, I look at what they go through every day to develop these apps, and I think about, what would happen if somebody was looking over their shoulder and trying to copy the code that Greg is writing? It would be devastating.
Right. No, of course. Our friend Chris Hawking says there was nothing under NDA at the Final Cut Pro Creative Summit this year. I think they might have put the Q&A under NDA, but they just didn't do it. They didn't do it, but I'm saying
it was more NDA.
I call
Nobody
it
signed
friend
anything.
Well, remember,
we didn't sign an actual
friend
NDA, but
I asked the first
to keep some of that private. So
yes, I asked the first question, and one of the things I asked, I'm not going to say who, but one of the panel members, I said, "Can I quote you on that?" And they said something to the effect of, "I prefer that you didn't."
I'd rather not.
I'd rather that you didn't. So
it was at that
so
moment
I didn't.
where I saw a red dot on your forehead.
Yes, more than one. One of them was from Tim Cook. I think I saw him. No, of course. But the thing is, the idea of being kept in the dark, no, that's not accurate. You might, everything that we knew, you knew, between all of us and everybody was there on social media, YouTube. I broadcast 9 hours of live video from the summit, and I updated things every day and every morning, every night and every morning. So nobody was kept in the dark. There's no darkness that was kept. Everything we know about.
To be fair, I
I
mean,
understand
that
the
one
I
day
understand the feeling.
it was made public, but everything before that, like, I mean, we are kept in the dark. But that's just the way Apple operates. You know, we didn't know what was happening until we showed up on that day, uh, and that's the same day the public found out. So I mean, we are intentionally kept in the dark.
But no, but I guess the point, the issue was, he said 99% of us left in the dark. No, if you're in the dark, we're in the dark too. Okay. You know, it's not
that point. Who's that 0.1% then?
Well, I think he meant the people that are at the summit.
I think he means the actual Pro Apps team. Those are the ones who know, and nobody else knows.
Can I go backwards just a tiny bit? I found the name of the software that we were using during NAB for remote access. It's called Splashtop. And I guess some of the production companies like Warner Brothers uses it, Toyota uses it. They're one of those professional IT-based solutions. And Jeff Arbello, if you're still listening, give me a call and we'll talk about it offline. I'll get it set up for you.
So one of the highlights for me of going to the Creative Summit was riding around in Cirina's Tesla. After I'd never been in a Tesla before, so it was a real treat. And we went on a search for cream for our coffee. Monday night, was it? I think it was Monday night. Yeah, I think it was Monday night.
I can't remember what night, but
that
we
thing
needed
has
that coffee cream.
That Tesla had the biggest screen I've ever seen. I mean, it's like bigger than my iPad inside of it. It was a gigantic. And she punched in there, find Richard some half and half or some cream for his coffee. And Richard can go to this store and find it. A little thing popped up and we found it. So that was great.
Inside the store, and it wasn't near the milk. It was over by, I don't know, in some other department, right? Remember the guy helped?
I went to the milk section, and then there's 20 places for milk, and oat milk and goat milk and this milk and green milk and all these different things, and there's no half and half or cream. I'm like, where? And some guy heard us over talking, and then he said, no, it's over here. It's a different section of the store, not that far away, but different section of the store. Yeah. So we have this one question from Dennis Jones. Do you think the Final Cut Pro team watches this kind of video? I know the Final Cut Pro team for a fact watches these live streams. I know it for a fact.
Say hi, guys, and thank you for the update.
I don't know if they watch them all. I don't know if it's everybody, but I will say.
No, I'm not saying the whole team, but they do watch it. I know they do watch it. And look, how many times I got a phone call from somebody, I can't say who it's from, but
oh wait,
from Apple.
I gotta answer this. Yeah, okay. I'm good. I'm good.
There you go. But anyway, so first off, Cirina, what are you doing for Christmas? You having your family over?
Oh yeah, I'm so excited about Christmas this year. I don't know why. I've got Christmas lights up everywhere except of course behind me for this, which I should have put some up. And I just made my cookie list. Do you want to hear my cookie list?
Yes, go ahead. We know what Brad does. He does chocolate chips.
Well, we're doing those too, but I've already made the date bread. And I made some amazing peanut butter cookies. That's all frozen, so it'll be nice and fresh when we take it out. And then I'm going to make sugar cookies, Belgian waffle cookies, some Greek wedding cookies. We call them snowballs.
Oh, yeah, I know what they are.
And then I'm going to make some little chocolate mini loaves. I got one of those mini loaf pans. I'm going to make these little chocolate cakes and gingerbread cookies. And if I get really... if I have time, I'll do some Lebkuchen. So I thought we would do like an international version. And then there's the Italian cookies I might make. Those little round ones where you fry them and then you roll them in honey and the sprinkles. So we're gonna have lots of cookie desserts.
You're gonna have lots of cookie. What about turkey and stuffing or whatever?
Oh, we're well, it's interesting because I have I don't want to give the surprise away, but
okay, don't give it away.
What I'm doing this year is something a little bit different. I asked everybody what their favorite meal was. And so we're doing some of the traditional stuff, but my daughter's a vegetarian, so she's not going to eat the Christmas ham or the turkeys or the duck or, so I'm making everybody's favorite dish, after we have all our appetizers. So we'll have our appetizers, and then we're going to different places around the world, and we're having one dish from each of those places in the world because we're sort of an international family. And I think that'll be kind of fun.
I think you
Indian,
just gave it
Italian,
away.
French, German.
I think you gave it away.
All that with the side of
I hope they
insulin.
don't watch this because it's a surprise. What, Brad?
I was saying with the side of all the side of insulin.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the cookies actually happened kind of by accident. We were going to do a cookie party, which we do every year, where our friends all come in and I have sugar cookies and everybody decorates them. But my daughter got COVID, unfortunately, so we couldn't do that party. So a lot of the stuff I bought to make for that party, we're moving over. So instead of the 20-person dinner, we're going to have a lot of food and a smaller dinner just for the family. But I love Christmas.
What about you, Brad? For Christmas,
What about me?
you having a traditional dinner?
When's Christmas? Is that coming?
Monday.
up soon? Should I do
Monday.
that?
Yes.
Oh boy, I better go buy some gifts today.
Yeah, exactly. Get the.
I was spending time with family. I don't know. Gonna eat lots of food, and
Yeah.
I think we got most of the stuff for the kids. Hopefully, they'll be happy with what they get. Or else
We're gonna pull up the big screen and watch Christmas Story. Christmas Story.
There you
this
go.
year. It's the 40th
Yeah, I'm going to watch
anniversary.
Charlie Brown's Christmas. I love that show. It's on Apple
Yeah.
TV, of course. So yeah, we're actually going into Baltimore tonight. There's a block in Baltimore. It's in Hamden, that the streets are just packed. Every house on both sides, including lights strung from one side to the other side through the air and everything. And every year they do this incredible. They call it Christmas Street. It gets on the news and everything. We go down there and I'll film some of that, and then I'll put it up highlights later before Christmas. So that's always fun. What about you, Gabe, for Christmas?
It's looking like I'll be working the whole time, pretty much. Otherwise, probably on Christmas Eve, I'll hang out with my wife. But
Oh, there
just
you go.
Work.
Yeah. Well, it's better than not working, that's for sure.
Do
Not
you
always.
get double pay on Christmas?
No.
Uh,
I get more
Scrooge
work.
is your employer.
I was going to say,
No, I'm not going to say that.
no, exactly.
Well, this is the time of year when we're watching a lot of movies between the Da Vinci International Film Festival that comes out in February, and I'm screening movies for that. And then the Producers Guild Awards are going to be coming up next year. And so we're screening all of those movies and Academy Awards. And then immediately, of course, Sundance and then the Berlinale. Why do all these festivals kind of gather the first quarter of the year? But I told one of my friends yesterday, I'm watching an average of 4 movies a day right now.
Right. Because you're doing screeners, right? You're voting?
Yeah, the screeners and for the festival, there's some amazing films in there.
So
You can get through them
Really
faster
are.
if you skip the end credits.
yeah, it's true. Play them double speed, skip the end credits, all those, whatever.
Watch the cliff notes of the movie. Watch a YouTube review. Cirina, if you're ever up here in Utah for Sundance, let me know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm not going to go this year. I've got too much going on. I'm going to be working on all this other stuff. So but next
Brad,
year,
2024 is this time next year, 2024. What are we going to say about Final Cut Pro updates 1 year from now? What are we going to say that we got that you'd like to see we get? It's a couple of features.
I'm hoping in the first half of the year that we get a big update, maybe around NAB. I don't have any insider info for
Right.
Charles, who's like, you're at the events, and there's not insider info. It's just a hope that by NAB we see a big feature like the mixer or roles-based effects mixer that we've been talking about. I'd love to just
Right.
see something like that. Maybe a year from now, maybe at the next Creative Summit, they have some cool collaboration feature or something. Who knows? Those are the two areas that just seem like if I was in charge of the app, which not, but if I was, I would. Those would be the two areas that of big feature updates that I would want to provide to the user base. So I'm hoping that they can deliver.
And what about you, Gabe?
Yeah, I definitely want a roles-based mixer or whatever they come up with for that solution. Closing up timelines and compound clips and working outside of the context is a workaround, and I'll never accept any other definition. But I also really want open compound clips in place. I would like to just be able to open it up, adjust what I need to, close it up, and done. Because if that was the case, that would solve the current compound clip limitation, and the new feature, collapse the secondary storyline, wouldn't even need to exist because you could just collapse it to a compound clip where you can uncollapse, which is a big question online, where you currently can't. So this would solve a lot of problems, and it's something I would use all throughout the day, every single day. So that's a huge one for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
What about you, Cirina?
Gabe, what you're talking about.
Go ahead, Brad.
Just add something to what Gabe was saying. I think with this latest update, where you could collapse everything into a secondary storyline, I think everybody thought when they first read that they might be getting what you were talking about, which is you can open up a compound clip, which is in a way almost the reverse of that. I do think they must be experimenting with ways to do that. If they have this feature where you can collapse everything into the secondary storyline, they must be experimenting with how do you open and view a compound clip in context in your timeline as opposed to having to jump over to a separate timeline. That'd be a big deal.
Yep.
It would be a huge time saver. And that's the type of thing I'm more interested in. I mean, collaboration would be huge for the platform as a whole. But even text-based editing and being able to transcribe upon import, as useful as I think that would be, I'm more interested in the little things we already have, just tweaking them, taking them one step further to make them that much more powerful, moving a marker more than a frame at a time for one, or even different custom ratings. Instead of just rejects and favorites, maybe we can create our own subset with different colors. You could mark purple for speaker 1 or green for speaker 2 or whatever. Little things like that would be huge, I think.
Right. What about you, Cirina?
I would like to stop having to use time bolt to get rid of the ums and the repetitive words and spaces in between words and have that just built into Final Cut. And I actually think that may be coming sooner than we think from a third party, which I'm not going to talk about right now. But
you just gave it away.
Yeah, pretty much did.
Really?
But it's the script.
Right,
the script
Gabe,
has
the range
that.
tool and getting rid of the breaths and the ums and the you knows and
the script has that now. The script has. They've had it for a long time, about a year or longer.
But it's not built into. I haven't used Descript, but I understand that it has its limitations. I've been using Time Bolt a lot.
No, I used Descript for that, but what else would you like?
What else would I like?
Yeah, for the next year.
Roles.
I think an easier way to manage color. Say, Brad.
I said less colors for the roles. I'm contrarian.
No, I know.
I've been telling you when you start taking features away.
Exactly.
Like auditions. Who uses auditions? Let's just take it out of the app.
Well, as a matter of,
we don't need that.
Somebody exactly. They a couple years ago, people were talking about they didn't want a scrolling timeline, and I said, "Oh, I don't want multicam editing." So take away scrolling timeline. Take away. What are you talking about? that's everybody wants their little teeny things. As a matter of fact, look. This is my list, 100 list. I finally got to cross the scrolling timeline off of number 1. Finally, I went over there and took that out of there. So, but it's what I'd like to see.
Color?
Yeah. What were you saying about color?
I think and I'm not an expert at color, but I'd like it to be a lot easier to work with color in Final Cut and do some more sophisticated grading within Final Cut. A lot of people are going to resolve for that, and I don't know that that's going to change, but there are times when I would really like to finish something off, at least to send it to a client where they could see it the way I would like to see it when it's finished, or at least as close to. I'm not a color expert, but I think if we could make that a little bit easier, it would be helpful.
I would like, apart from the shape mask and the color mask, I'd like a draw mask that actually is built into every effect, so where you can feather the different points separately, individually.
Well, that's a good idea. Some people have
also. You're specifically saying inside a color adjustment or color correction.
Yeah, we have a drag and drop
distinction, because you can obviously make a draw mask and you can obviously track certain things, but what you can't do is do a secondary correction and create a mask and then draw the points. And Cirina, on your point, I think there's a couple things. One is even if you had a full suite of color correction in Final Cut, just because professional colorists know Resolve, it's still going to be necessary to pass to Resolve, just because that's similar with audio mixer. You'd still be likely sending it out to somebody who knows Pro high end. But I do think that there are little things in Final Cut Pro for color workflow that would improve it. One is what Gabe's talking about, which is the custom mask shape. Another one, I think if there's an effects mixer, that would improve the workflow, so you could color a group of clips together. Some of it might involve, and that might also fix, I think Charles had an earlier comment about log processing and how it's done first in the settings. And you can apply a custom LUT, but you have to do that to everything. Well, if you could apply a custom LUT to a group of clips, then that would basically solve that workflow through roles. That would solve that workflow issue. And then I think that one of the last things is native support for panels, like tangent panels. That color grading, which right now you rely on command post to be able to use like a tangent ripple, for example, which is great. But those are the areas that would make it, I think, more possible to do quick turnarounds, promos, document, and stay in Final Cut. I don't think that there'll ever be a point where, all professional colorists will just be like, oh, of course we'll color grade your movie in Final Cut, because it's just not. When you specialize, you're going to use the specialty tool.
One other thing I recall, the ability to collapse multicam clips, like flatten them, or B, export like projects with the handles, like trim media with handles. Those two things would affect me every day as well. And I would affect a lot of people every day. That would be huge.
Yeah, it seems peculiar to me after this length of time that you can't batch export clips with handles. And, to condense your project without copying the entire clip with handles. It's got to have handles, that option. It seems peculiar that that's not there after all these years.
So I work with multicams every day, and my director, 99% of the time the footage. And the only way to do that in a way that looks good is optical flow, but you can't use optical flow on multicam clips. So you could either render them out, or we could just flatten them, or they could just unlock it.
Or you have to figure out how to match an overcut. So you go in the multicam, you match back to that frame, you figure out the range, then you have to over back on top of the multicam. It's ridiculous.
I would rather
I've done that.
I would rather cut with Premiere than do that. Yeah.
I've done that, or the other option is you can send it to Resolve and you can bring it back, but then your roles and metadata and keywords and everything is just gone from that timeline. So there are weird workarounds that have big limitations compared to just me flatten a multicam, leave the I guess the trick might be because you might have different audio channels selected, but to me it's just like, we'll flatten that too.
Right. Flatten everything.
Attached audio.
Yeah. Because the way audio works in Final Cut anyways, you can always have access to all the channels whenever you want, regardless. So if a few get turned on and it gets weird translation, then you can just uncheck them and turn them off again. They're still there.
Well, I'm saying when your video and audio source are separate angles, then you
within the
attached audio.
Well, maybe it would just flatten it into a compound clip then or something. But yeah.
Chris Hawking, you're up very late. What the heck time is it in Australia? Every time I do the Aussies show, they have 5 different time zones, and one of them's off by 30 minutes. One of them's off by 30 minutes. There's no way I could figure out their time. They have to give them a time in the U.S. Oh, it's 7:30 a.m., he said. Okay, there you go. It's 14 hours difference. It's in the morning.
Yeah, that's not so bad.
No. So Chris says exporting clips with handles is tricky when you have behaviors and motion templates. For example, if you have Alex 40 grow shrink applied to a clip.
I think that's a different thing. If I'm doing that, it's because I don't want to archive like 500, or like 5 terabytes of media. I just want to export the media that's used in my project. So it doesn't matter if there's animation on them. That's just saving the raw media, the timeline export.
Right. That would make that's true.
So we're talking about 2 different things, though, because one is media management, where you might bring the XML or the timeline back in, and those effects would go back over the original media. Another is you might, to like say for purposes or something, you might want to batch export selected clips on your timeline, and you may not want those effects baked in. Which, like in the case of Resolve, if you have like some animation on part of it, it can be kind of weird because like color masks and things freeze in the handle zones. I don't know if you've ever done that, but it's very odd because you have handles, but like those handles are almost useless because wherever that last keyframe was, it just holds there, and then you have like a shot that's moving and the mask like looks really weird over it. Anyway, there's definitely some weird things when it comes to what Chris is talking about.
Richard, what's on your list for next year?
Well, I have 100 things. So how about a better keyframe editor? How about being able to select default preferences? So for 12 years now, I have, every time I put up a new project timeline, I gotta go to the right-hand side of the timeline, select my film strip size, and select my audio size every time. The audio waveforms. You know what I'm talking about? On the right-hand side. I change that every time because I don't like the default. Why doesn't it stay there? Or let me choose as a default. So default preferences, mono, stereo, stuff like that. Let me have a checkbox so that I can check it. The other thing is, there's a lot of empty space in that right above the timeline, that bar. It's completely empty for 12 years. Why can't we put some custom things, like if for people that want to turn the scrolling timeline off, let me put a custom little icon there that I can turn the, it's empty space. It's not being used. So that's another thing. Let me, customize. Now, in my case, I actually went to the preferences where the scrolling timeline checkbox is, and I super glued it on. I put some super glue on my screen so that absolutely 100% stays on all the time. But people that want to turn it on and off, you can. I mean, there's empty space up there. Let's put some icons in there that, maybe some custom ones or some options. Those are a couple of things.
Well,
you gotta support
the people who have that VGA resolution of like 768 by 576 or whatever.
Yeah. Well, here's another thing. How about
that all closes up?
How about being able to drag and drop effects, titles, transitions in their respective browsers to create favorites, drag and drop in the browsers themselves, not going out into the Finder and doing it. Transitions, for example. Create favorite transitions. You can't do it in the browser, in the effects browser, in the transitions browser. Brad's looking at me like he can do it somehow.
I would just like to be able to hide all of the templates we don't use.
Yeah,
just select
stuff
them
like
and hide
that.
them.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I mean.
Because 95% of them I will never use. They're just in the way. They make locating other stuff much more difficult.
Or you install FX Factory and you have every trial turned on by default. And then you're like, I don't need to see all those.
Right. So those are things I like to see.
Well, I need to go start baking cookies.
I have to get back to
I
work.
need to eat lunch. We're leaving you, Richard.
That's okay. We're going to do this before we leave, everybody.
No.
And I've
is
got
that really a feature in Final Cut? No, that's
yes,
not
yes,
is?
it's in 10.7.1. Absolutely, it's a new feature.
What about Bruce? What about Bruce the Yak?
Bruce the Yak's not there yet.
Back.
Yes,
Oh.
Bruce the Yak.
Gotta bring him back.
I'm gonna use that over footage of animals that need to be adopted with some music. There you go. The snow.
Now I have another podcast that I've had for 20 years, Roots Rock Radio, and I just did the Christmas show. So I have Christmas music that I'm allowed to use on YouTube. I don't think they're going to shut me down because this is one of the songs from the background music. I have this guy is called the Mystery Renderer, and he does all these instrumental versions of different Christmas songs and things. So, yeah. So anyway,
I think Final Cut has a mystery renderer, and that every time you open it, your render files are gone.
Yes. I don't know what that's going on with that. That's been going on for years. I don't render.
Better off without those old render files. They were corrupt anyway.
Well, that might be a good thing. It your project's not as big.
Exactly.
If we could trim the media with handles.
It just doesn't. Yeah.
Merry Christmas, you guys, and Richard. Thanks for having me on again. It's always nice to see.
I want to wish each and every one of you on this screen a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year's, and all the listeners out there. Same thing. If you don't celebrate Christmas, whatever you do celebrate, I hope you have a great holiday this season. Hope you have a great 2024. I'm looking forward to it. And Cirina, tell Philip to check his messages. I sent him a message earlier in the week about coming on the show next week. So,
he'll have a lot to talk about.
Well, that's hope. I wasn't sure if he's going out of town. Sometimes him and Greg go to Italy or something, or they're world travelers. And then here's the other thing I wish for 2024: another Creator Summit at the Juniper Hotel, or someplace like that. That's all in one place. I really enjoyed everything this year, but I think they know that too. They like to have it in one place, but it just didn't work out this year. So, thanks to Future Media Concepts. Thanks to the Final Cut Pro team. Thanks to everybody on the and Apple that let us come to their campus finally after all these years.
Yeah.
All right.
It was wonderful. Happy holidays, everybody.
Happy holidays. Merry Christmas, everybody. Talk to you later.
Bye.